Okay, so this week we're going to set up a new note type, and this note type will help you study percents, decimals, and fractions. So we go to Anki, and so here's my user, and we'll say we're going to add, and we go to our types. We're going to manage our types. I'm going to add a new type, and we can build it on the basic. So let's build it on the basic and say OK. And we'll say that this is going to be our percent, fraction, decimal type. Say OK. Okay, so then we close that. And we'll see if a new one showed up. There it is, percent, fraction, decimal. So we're going to choose this guy. And let's look at our fields. And so we're going to rename the front field will be percent. Okay, so yes, we know this is a new card type. And so we'll rename back fraction, and I'm going to add one, which will be decimal. Okay. Okay, and so what would be an example of this? So an example would be, let's say that you have the fraction 1/2. Well, 1/2 is the decimal 0.5, and what is that as a percent? It's 50%. Okay. So let's say we added that card. Well, or added that note. Let's see what cards we want to generate from that. So right now, we're going to generate percent, and on the back it's going to say fraction. Okay, so card 1 is going to be that. So let's rename card 1, and we'll rename it to percent to fraction, and say OK. And so then we'll say, well, what fraction is equivalent to, and then we'll put our break in, so the less than sign break. Okay. What fraction is equivalent to that percent? And then we'll have our fraction. So there's our first card. And then we want to add a new card, and we'll rename it. And so that'll be fraction to percent. Okay. So we're going to say what percent is equivalent to. And so then we'll just swap these around, right? So we'll take this guy. Oh, missed it. So we'll grab a little bit more. So we'll take the fraction, put that here, and we'll delete percent. Put that there. Okay. So we don't need the edit to customize anymore, so take that out. Okay, so our second card, fraction percent, it'll have the fraction on the front. Okay, well, looks like it needed double. Does it need double? I don't know, they always use double for that, so I'll keep using it. And what percent is equivalent to this fraction? So we go from fraction to percent to fraction. Okay, so now we need to add another card, and we'll rename that. And that will be fraction to decimal. So for example, 1/2 to 0.5. And we'll say what decimal. is equivalent to this fraction. But now we'll have to put in a new field, so we don't want that. So let's add a field, and we add the field decimal. So we say OK. Okay, and so we got all that extra stuff. I don't think we really need that. So we've got it. So looks like we could just take this decimal and put it where the percent was. Okay, because I think that formatting already come from the middle card. Okay, so what fraction is equivalent to the decimal? Okay, so we like that. And now we say card 4, and we're going to rename that. And we'll say decimal to fraction. Okay, so we're going to go decimal to fraction. So I think we can just take this out and put it there, and then put that in there. So now we've swapped decimal and fraction, and we change it there. So what fraction is equivalent to decimal? And so we don't need these edit to customize. Take those out. Okay, so we had one up here. We don't need that either. Okay, so it looks like I got the other ones. So decimal fraction. What fraction is equivalent to? Okay, this decimal. Oh, yeah, what fraction is equivalent to decimal? We'll put the fraction on here. Going to fraction. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so what have we done? We've done percent to fraction, fraction to percent. Fraction to decimal, decimal to fraction. So now we need percent to decimal. And so we'll put that down there, rename. So we'll say percent to decimal. Okay. And so we want to add that, and we'll just double check. We'll say add field. Oh, it's a percent. So we know how to spell that, right? P-R-C-E-N-T. So we just say, okay. So I'll put that in here. So, and I'll put that in. Let's see, percent to decimal. So we'll say what decimal is equivalent to this percent. And then down here, we want to put our decimal. And we'll go to this guy. What decimal? And we go decimal. And finally, we're going to go decimal to percent. So we'll rename that decimal to percent. And say OK. And so we'll say what percent is equivalent to this decimal. Don't need this guy up here. And then down here, put in our percent. Yeah, so 6 cards altogether. So one note type gives us 6 cards. Okay, and so if we close that and go up to Browse and look at Added Today, let's see what we got. So if we preview, what fraction is equivalent to 50%? So we should get a half. Okay. What percent is equivalent to 1/2? 50%. What decimal is equivalent to a half? 0.5. What fraction is equivalent to 0.5? A half. What decimal is equivalent to 50%? 0.5. What percent is equivalent to 0.5? 50%. Okay, so that looked pretty good. So just to check it out, let's go back and see what happens if we add another one. So we're going to go in and add another one, and we'll say perhaps 100%. So 100%, the fraction is 1 out of 1, and the decimal is 1.0. Could just call them both 1, but we're going to do that. So we'll add it, and we'll close it. And if we browse, added today, we see that we have some for that. So if we preview those cards, what fraction is equivalent? Oops, sorry. If we preview, go to browse, 1 for 1, what percent is equivalent to 100%, decimal is equivalent to 1, fraction is equivalent to 1.1, decimal is equivalent to 1, 1. Okay, so now, let's see, what should you do if you're a fourth grader, you might just try and do your fourth, so 25% is 1/4 is 0.25. If you're a fifth or sixth grader, if you're a fifth grader, put in your eighths as well. And if you're a sixth grader, I think you'd do well to put in things like, what is a 0.5%?